federal government shouldn't be in the entitlement business. The big problem is getting the federal government out of that business. It has been utterly taboo to even mention the term Social Security in the same sentence with reform, reduction, phase out, elimination. I'm here right now to tell you one thing. It will be my objective to phase out Social Security, to pull it up by the roots and get rid of it. That's why I'm doing this, to get rid of that. Medicare and Medicaid are of the same sort and need to be pulled up.
If you have watched part 1 and part 2 of this video series, then you know 3 truths about Social Security and Medicare. First, Social Security and Medicare help create the prosperous American middle class, and if these programs disappear, so does the middle class. Second, the Republican Party will cut and gut these programs into nothing if given the opportunity.
Well, John, that's, of course, the Democrat talking point. It's a 11-step
No, it's
plan.
in the plan. It's in the plan.
They can achieve this by reauthorizing these programs as discretionary spending, granting themselves the ability to stop payments to beneficiaries year after year.
What we ought to be doing is we ought to turn everything into discretionary spending.
And last, the Social Security and Medicare trust funds will be depleted soon. And while incoming payroll tax revenue will be able to pay out 80 to 85% of benefits for the next several decades, benefits are facing automatic cuts. And while these cuts are minor, Republicans use this fact to scare voters into giving them a mandate to dismantle these programs altogether.
Medicare goes bankrupt in 4 years. Social Security goes bankrupt in 12 years.
Republicans are sounding these false alarm bells because they know their window to dismantle these programs is closing. The closer we get to trust fund depletion dates, the more likely it is that the voting public will make a decision about the future of Social Security and Medicare. They can accept automatic cuts, they can let the GOP dismantle these programs entirely, or they can choose the most obvious and practical solution, the Republican nightmare. In an America where income inequality is worse than it's been in the last 100 years, the obvious solution to protecting such crucial programs is to increase payroll taxes on the wealthiest Americans. This becomes even more of the obvious solution when you consider that the Social Security OASDI payroll tax is not a progressive tax structure like the income tax. The Social Security payroll tax is actually a regressive tax, meaning the ultra-wealthy actually pay a lesser percentage of their income than do the middle class or poor. This is because the Social Security payroll tax includes a maximum taxable income limit set at $147,000 in annual income. All income above this number pays $0 in payroll taxes. So, the more income above $147,000, the less this person pays in payroll taxes to Social Security as a percentage of their income. In this example, if the maximum taxable income limit is removed and our $500,000 a year employee and his employer had to pay the same payroll tax as the middle class, it would generate nearly $44,000 more for Social Security than the current system allows. In fact, nearly 1/5 of all employee payroll sits above the maximum taxable income limit and contributes $0 to the Social Security Trust Fund. That is a massive amount of money that should at least be held to the same standards as money earned by middle-class workers. And, thanks to rampant income inequality, only 6% of the population would see an increase in their payroll taxes if the maximum taxable income limit was removed. There would be zero negative effect on the middle class that drives the US economy. So, if the maximum taxable income limit was removed, what effect would it have on Social Security funding? The Congressional Research Service has studied this scenario extensively. The CRS looks at Social Security funding over a 75-year term. They project that just removing the maximum taxable income limit would eliminate between 57% to 73% of the 75-year funding shortfall, just by having the top 6% of earners in the country pay the same payroll tax as everyone else. Even better, the Social Security Trust Fund depletion date would be pushed back by 20 to 26 years, putting it somewhere around 2055 or 2060. During this time, Social Security beneficiaries would receive the full benefits they are owed, but additional funding is needed. And that additional funding needs to come from investment income. Even with the maximum taxable income limit removed, the top 1% of earners still contribute a smaller percentage of their paycheck to Social Security than the middle-class workers. The bottom 99% earn most of their income with labor, wages, and salary that pays a payroll tax, while the top 1% earns the majority of their income with investment income, capital gains, and capital income. This type of income pays 0% towards Social Security. In 2019, individual tax returns showed nearly $1.4 trillion in investment income. This means a payroll tax of 6.2% would yield $85 billion in Social Security trust fund revenue. Even with investment income fluctuation, we are talking tens of billions of dollars in revenue every year to fund Social Security coming primarily from the top 1% of earners. Keep in mind that with the trust fund depletion date pushed back 20 to 26 years from 2035, this revenue from investment income would go straight into the Social Security Trust Fund. The end result is Social Security being fully funded for the full 75-year term and beyond. This is exactly what Republicans are trying to avoid. After all, Republicans have always despised entitlements, and they just passed tax reform that gifted wealthy Americans a giant tax break. A Republican's worst nightmare is the American people realizing that Social Security and Medicare are not bankrupt, and that all the funding needed to maintain these programs exists in the despicable tax havens of the ultra-wealthy. And fully funding Medicare is no different from fully funding Social Security, except in a way fixing Medicare is easier because it represents a much smaller tax burden. In fact, the Medicare Board of Trustees projects that Medicare would be fully funded for the full 75-year term if current payroll taxes simply increase from 2.9% to 3.6%. Problem solved. However, with income inequality out of control, it's important that any increase in funding doesn't come from the middle class, but instead from the wealthiest Americans. Democrats have already made some progress with the passage of the Affordable Care Act that added a 0.9% Medicare surtax on high-income earners and a 3.8% net investment income tax on investment income of high earners. These programs saved the Medicare Part A trust fund from depletion 10 years earlier than currently projected, and, if enacted decades earlier, would have kept the Medicare trust fund flush with cash indefinitely. So, when it comes to Social Security and Medicare, do not believe Republicans.
They want the programs to go bankrupt. We don't want Medicare and Social Security to go bust like the Democrats right now have us on a track.
Two of the biggest problems in America today are entitlement reform and income inequality. The solutions for each are directly linked. In an America where the net result of all government economic policy over the last 40 years is the lasting effect of Reaganomics, where the wealthy are able to pay a lesser percentage of their overall income to taxes and the federal minimum wage has been beaten down to nearly nothing, wouldn't it make sense for Social Security and Medicare to continue to get the funding it needs without raising taxes on the middle class? After all, the U.S. economy cannot survive without a prosperous middle class, and the middle class will not continue without two of the most sound programs that created it, Social Security and Medicare.